So we got the movie Regretting You is a romance comedy drama movie releasing in the cinemas at the end of October, just in time for the cozy cuffing fall season. It's based on a book with the same name, Regretting You by Colleen Hoover, which I do have, and I have read it in its entirety, so we'll definitely talk about it. If that author sounds familiar to you, it's because she came out last year with also a movie. It Ends With Us, yeah, scary, because it stars Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively, which that movie is drowned in controversy, which I also did a review and read the book as well, so link below if you want to see that. Unlike this movie, which it doesn't have a lot of controversy, but it does have good book to screen adaptation, which we'll talk about it. What happens when you have not one, but two families after a devastating incident or tragedy that literally changed the course of their lives and also their love lives? Will Clara or Morgan find love? Will it stay true to the book? Find out as we talk about it. So before we talk about the review, I gotta give you my experience at the theaters. So I saw the movie twice, right? One time in a regular format and the other time in a Dolby Atmos. It's weird because if you know anything about me, I love the premium formats, right? So I saw the first time, great. I wanted to see the second time to get my notes down better. And going to a Dolby Atmos, if you guys know, it's the deeper blacks, it's a bigger and sharper sound. It's probably better than normal, right? I didn't think it would make a difference. I think the last time I saw a premium theater for a romance movie was probably We Live in Time. That came out last year. And I didn't think it would make a difference, but it kind of does. I mean, yes, you get a bigger screen and louder sound, but also the brightness of the screen is brighter and sharper. So it actually does make a difference, but still, I would still watch it in normal again, but I just wanted to throw that out there. Not a lot of romance movies get released in premium formats these days, so hint, hint. A quick disclaimer before we talk about the review. I picked this book up 3 weeks ago before watching the movie, so I already knew how the characters looked like. If you've been on this channel for me for a while, 3 things. I appreciate, love you, and I thank you. I used to go to school before YouTube to become a relationship therapist, so I was going for my psychology degree. I wanted to become a romance counselor, but I guess that fell through because my passion is this. The reason why I say this is because I want romance to succeed. Yeah, I like girls. Yeah, I love women. And when I find my girl, I'll let you guys know. Maybe, hopefully, she can do video reviews as well. But I want romance to succeed. A lot of guys get stigmatized online. Oh, romance is only for femininity. No. All right, let's get on with the review. To be honest, this is a great film to book to cinemas adaptation, keeping the most of the core fundamentals and also the amazing faithful scenes in terms of the character development, but does switch up a little bit of things, which we'll talk about it, but also synergizing well with some elements that are giving to you in terms of informational purposes that only could be found in a book, just like the pregnancy scene. With that being said, everyone works well together in terms of the cast, in terms of the chemistry, but also giving you information that was not provided in the book on screen for you to see real quick. Before we talk about the plot, I do gotta recognize the A-list all-star ensemble amazing cast that this movie and book have in terms of Dave Franco, Allison Williams, not to mention Mason Thames. If you don't know who Mason Thames is, last week he came out with a horror movie, Black Phone 2, Scary. So this is his third movie. Earlier in the year, he came out with How to Train Your Dragon. So he's definitely been on a roll. And McKenna Grace, she has grown up. She used to play that little girl in terms of the Annabelle Comes Home, but now seeing her here, dude, it's amazing. Not to mention Sky Eastwood and Philip Fitzgerald, which also have starred in their own romance movies as well. I gotta give a huge, massive shout out to Clancy Brown. I knew he looked and sounded familiar in terms of when I saw him as a character. He plays as Miller Scrams, and then I did some digging and my heart dropped because he played Hank in Detroit Become Human, which was so significant to me. If you don't know what Detroit Become Human is, if that doesn't rally you up, it should. It's one of the best exclusive, well, it's not exclusive anymore, best video games on PlayStation and PC. I've platinumed that game and I still play it multiple times. Hank is Connor's partner. Dude, I saw him and I was like, oh my god, I can't believe he's here. The movie opens up just like in the book in the first chapter. We got 4 friends, actually a flashback. So Allison Williams' character Morgan is younger. She's dating Chris Grant, which is the Eastwood's character. Dave Franco is driving and Willa Fitzgerald is, Aunt Jenny is in the passenger seat, right? They're going to, I guess, the party. They're graduating from college. They're stopping at a gas station to pick up beer. But one thing that is pretty cool is that in the book, you do see that Morgan was saying, oh, I'm pregnant, I'm not gonna drink tonight. And she was saying that Chris was gonna be the first person she tells. And I get it, we read that later on, but it could be a flashback as well, correct me if I'm wrong. She actually tells Jonah right there on the beach. She's like, I'm pregnant. And then we get the title sequence, Regretting You. I'm like, wow, that's a good use of synergizing because it's giving us the information we didn't, if you didn't read the book, right? And then chapter 2 is 17 17 years later with Clara picking up Miller's character at the stop sign and is still moving. All right, let's talk about the first couple. Do I think McKenna Grace and Mason Thames have a chemistry? Honestly, yeah, absolutely. And it shows on screen. And guess what? Guess what? Rumor has it that they're a real life couple. I know, right? They're dating now. It literally jumped from the page to the screen and now you see sparks flying. But you really do see that and feel that in terms of the communication, the way they look at each other, the way they interact, especially they're literally in a romance movie. They're both around the same age. Yeah, they're dating in real life, which is awesome. You know, I'm like, dude, yeah, of course we see the chemistry, we feel that, the kisses, the songs, and whatever, the hugs and stuff. And look, credit to be credit where it's due. McKenna Grace really steps up to the plate, giving us gut-wrenching scenes that tug at your heartstrings in terms of emotional of roller coasters, right? Or emotions of roller coasters, happiness and everything between sadness, crying, and also jumping for joy. She really walks that fine line. Mason Thames deserves a shout out too. He plays opposite McKenna Grace character, and I feel like with this movie, he looks like he's starting to have range. Now, range is a weird word that you might not know. Range, that means he can do a lot of things in like different contexts of movies. So sad, happy, and he played a different teenager back in Black Phone 2. And with this, he feels like the hot, throbbing, like young couple in high school, right? You know what's funny? What gravitated towards me in the book and the poster is actually Dave Franco. I don't know if you can see it. Here, let me see this poster. This came out 9 years ago in 2016, July 27, right? It's Dave Franco. It's the movie from Nerve, which I also have the Blu-ray of. But the reason why that's so significant is because I like him as an actor, no homo. But seeing him play opposite Allison Williams' character in terms of high school friends now being jointed into adulthood is pretty cool because Jonah, Dave Franco's character, he gets Morgan's sister pregnant, Jenny, Willa Fitzgerald. Now they're all together again. It feels like their high school reunion. They're all single, having fun. And now they're still an adult dating the same people, just circumstances are different. But you know something is amiss. That's why they're in the front cover. That's why I thought these guys were couples and they're not. This girl, Morgan, is actually the mother of McKenna Grace's character. I know, right? Shocker. I don't know if I should feel good because I'm getting older. You know, 9 years ago, it was in 2015. I literally just almost finished college and I was dating a girl that I thought I was gonna get married, and he actually sticks around. Jonah plays the teacher in one of the classes of Clara's character in high school. So not only is he tied to her mother in terms of the past, he sticks around as a teacher, which is cool. I'm like, dude, we get to see this ensemble cast interact with each other at different points in the book and also at different places. Allison Williams' character is the mother as Clara, gets pregnant in the beginning, but also she still has her later down the road. And I feel like she does a good job forecasting the events after the devastating incident or the accident that happened, showcasing that she's frustrated with her daughter, but she's also grappling some unresolved trauma and feelings to Jonah's character because I guess they have an unspoken rule. When you read the book, they look at each other for like 2 seconds and they know what each other are thinking about. Like in the beginning where they're trying to go home to party and she wants to drink and he doesn't want to drink. And they look at each other like, yeah, that was a 2-second conversation that I'm gonna drive home. And that's so cool because you don't get that in the movie, but you do get that in the book. They play well. They have great chemistry as well because they're on screen a lot, right? They're dealing with the devastating incident in their own way. They're leaning on each other more. But Morgan is like, dude, you leave for 17 years and then you come back and then now you're pregnant with my sister. Like, what the hell? You don't think like I would have had a chance or something like that, you know? So you see the great stuff of the chemistry. Do I think it's end all be all for these guys? As much as I love them individually in terms of actor and actresses. I mean, I love Dave Franco and Allison Williams. She played in Megan, you know? So I love seeing these guys together. But I think it's a 9 out of 10. It could be a wifey and husband material. And before I saw the movie, I thought that. But then when I saw how they interacted, I'm like, you know what? Maybe it could have been a little bit less. But still, great stuff all the way around. One of my favorite scenes of the movie is the dinner scene for the 17-year-old birthday party. Just like the book, and I don't want to spoil it too much, and I think that they did a great service in the movie, is all the major player characters are there, right? Their 17th birthday, they're having dinner. But it really feels like an episode of Housewives. They're bickering, they're jabbing each other back and forth. And it's after a certain scenario, so you do get the sense of uneasiness with, like, I guess, like, you would call it inappropriate. Because the way she says, she's like, oh, you calling inappropriate? I see you doing stuff with, like, my mother all the time. So if you read the book, you know what happens. And Lexi's there, Morgan's there, and it had my theater laughing at multiple points. Like I said, I don't want to give anything away if you haven't read it or seen it. But I think that was the most laughable scene that my theater had, and me too, because I was like, dude, Morgan goes to Clara, she's like, Clara, And she's like, Morgan. She's like, oh. and when you read the book and you know the context, I'm just letting you know that that scene was beautifully done with everyone intertwining and synergizing well, hint, hint, just like we talked about at the beginning. When people text in this movie, you do see it in terms of the imagery, but I also loved it because you get to hear the voices behind them in terms of come over tonight. And then Mason Thane's character, are you sure? So I love that, and I feel like that's a little touch that every movie should do well going forward. If you hear they're fixing airports, they're fixing rooftops, so if you hear noise, I'm trying to drown it out, but you know, I can only do so much, so I apologize. However, before we end this review, do miss a lot of out loud thinking moments. Think of anime. They're thinking, oh, how can I attack this guy? I need to do a water technique before he gets to me. If you didn't read the book, you'll lose some of that context, which I will talk about it to you. There is a moment where Morgan, right, she's mad at Jonah, and she's taking care of Elijah, which is Jonah's son, sorry. And in the book, she says, I don't want to see Jonah ever again. If anything, I still want to spend time with Elijah. And guess what? She's like, so anyway, so she's talking about getting Elijah, and she's like, why don't we Uber Elijah to each other? We can Ubering babies. And I laughed out loud when I read that in the book. She's like, Ubering babies. That's funny. But they don't say that in the book. So I mean, they don't say that in the movie, so you never know that that's in their mind. Another part where Clara gets mad at her mother for a certain scenario. She goes out drinking, right, with Lexi. They're turning up, they're turning up, they're drinking, they're having a good time, right? And then Clara comes home and she starts throwing up. And I was like, dude, that's that's beautiful, because Morgan, the mother, says in the book, I want her to remember this hungover. I want her to throw up a lot, to have a bad headache. I'm like, dude, what the hell? And she's like, I want her to remember this so she would never drink again. You know, teenagers should not do that. You know, she at least drinking with me and whatever, you know. I'm like, wow. But then Clara, opposite of her in the book, she says, oh, even though I'm throwing up, it still feels like I'm a little child getting taken care of by my mother. So that was like a sweet, heartfelt moment. I'm like, dude, and you missed that because they do throw up. But you miss that context internally, what they're thinking about it. Most of the big moments are there, just like the food fight and the first kiss. And fun fact, I don't know if I saw that in the interviews. They filmed at AMC theaters. That was so cool because Miller in the book works at the theater. And when I saw it in the AMC theater, funny, you see in the theater, basically, they're kissing in the theater, they're watching in the movie theater, you have the suites and you see the marketing material. I'm like, wow, that's a cool nod. Speaking of which, another major laughable moment that made its way from the book to the screen was after the incident, well, let's just call it the funeral. They're in the car, right? She's getting high, and then Allison Williams' character literally pulls up, and there's a clip on this on Instagram. She pulls up and says, Clara Wilma Grant, get in the car, I've been calling you. And that was so funny because that how it was in the book. She couldn't open her door, so she had to pull it back, and then she was staring at Miller so hard. I was like, whoa. Like, I think some of the people were like sizzling at the theater. They were saying something or like screaming. I'm like, wow. You know, that it's made way to the movie, so it was pretty amazing to do that, dude. Look, at the end of the day, this is not just one love story, but multiple love stories intertwined, synergizing together in terms of the characters, but also trying to navigate the emotional roller coaster. You see these characters get mad, cry, get happy, multiple points throughout the scenes, not just one time, you know? So they do this well, coming back with the drama, the intrigue, the cheating potentially, you know, or the scandalous stuff, but also living the lives and how everyone else is connected. You know, you see old insecurities of trauma of childhood friends, unresolved feelings come to surface, and blossoming, even though the turmoil is much going on. The one negative thing, yes, there is one negative about this movie, is that it doesn't have to do with actually the material itself. The movie is coming out at the end of October 24th for the cozy fall cuffing season. Last year, guess what movie came out? We Live in Time. This movie centers around the summer. It's fall. Here in Chicago, I'm seeing the leaves go down. It's beautiful, like there's orange. And yeah, they could have made it released in the summer, but whatever. I mean, I'm still happy that we got it, but still, that is my only nitpick, is that the movie is still in summer, and I feel like we need to be in the fall weather. I'm like, that could have been a big change, better, but then again, you don't really want to change the material because it's hot. I mean, when she's picking them up, but so that's like the only big thing. The soundtrack and score, alright. I think there's only one song that gets me that I Shazam, and it's the beginning where McKenna Grace is singing. I think it's called Writings on the Wall or something like that. She's singing it in her car, and I think that's the only soundtrack that I Shazam. Everything else is fine. I mean, yeah, you do see it in the Instagram post, but I don't think the soundtrack or score was memorable, you know, which sucks, you know. Usually sometimes they would add on, or I might have to watch it a third time, but just the beginning. Look, at the end of the day, this is a great book to film adaptation. I'm gonna give this a grade A, so your results may vary. If you made it this far, I really appreciate it so much. It's 1944, which I'll definitely cut it down, but this is a long review because there's good ass movie. I'm sorry to, you know, do that, but good ass movie, good ass book. But anyway, I appreciate you, I love you, and I thank you, and we'll talk. Bye.